Next speaker, Dr. Nilanjan Ghosh. Dr. Nilanjan Ghosh is Director, Observe Research Foundation, and he has been the Senior Advisor of Worldwide Fund for Nature, India. His previous position was at various points, which includes Senior Fellow and Head of Economics of ORF Kolkata. He was also faculty at TERI. So can I request Mr. Nilanjan to kindly present his deliberation?
Thank you. The pleasure is entirely mine. Let me thank all the organizers for inviting me to this very august gathering and share my thoughts. Yet at the very outset, I have a confession to make that I am not really a domain expert. I have not worked in your sector or have conducted any research in your domain. I happen to be a development economist who has been poking his nose into everything, including the cause of the MSMEs. So all I can do right now is to gather a few thoughts from the preceding speeches and place that in the context of the present post-COVID economic scenario and talk of the MSMEs, in fact, in a generic context, and also put that in the perspective of the steel sector. As such, I do not intend to reiterate the importance of the steel industry in the national economy in terms of its contribution as an input for infrastructure and various other products. Let me just reiterate the concerns raised in the National Steel Policy 2017 about the industry. The concerns that were raised was, actually there were multiple concerns that were raised, and they were include the fact that the companies are plagued with huge debts. There is lack of what we call the domestic demand, which is definitely is going to emerge as a major concern at this point in time. Low quality of metallurgical coke for blast furnace iron making, high input costs, and of course the competition which is emerging from China, Korea, and other countries, that is the cheap imports. So the aim of the draft NSP was to develop self-sufficiency in the steel industry and make it globally competitive. And the policy target was to achieve something around production of around 300 million tons by 2030-31. So we have some kind of a dream on the one hand, and so that is something that we intend to achieve. And there were certain performance indicators and some of the something that needs to be done about it. So there was some kind of a linear thinking on how we can achieve this 300 million tons by 2030-31. But when we think about linearity, there are often shocks that emerge. And in 2020, the shock has emerged in the form of the global outbreak of this pandemic. So what does this leave us with? And what will be the state of the MSMEs under such circumstances? A very recent survey by the All India Manufacturers Organization revealed that around 35% of the MSMEs are going to pull down their shutters as an outcome of the present economic trough due to this pandemic. And this phenomenon prevails despite the slew of the liquidity measures announced by the finance minister for the MSMEs, which will entail a collateral-free automatic loan worth 3 lakh crore for borrowers who have up to 25 crore outstanding and 100 crore turnover, with loans having a 4-year tenure and moratorium for around 4 months. And the MSMEs are able to borrow up to 20% of their total outstanding credit as on February 29, 2020. As envisaged by the government, the earmarked amount will plug the need for providing seed capital for the small enterprises that have almost been slapped by zero or near negligible, near zero cash flow due to the national lockdown. One needs to interpret this lockdown as the locking of the market forces that kept the MSMEs floating so far. So it is not essentially a Keynesian world that used to prevail. It was not really that the governmental incentives kept them afloat. The market forces somehow over the last 260, 70 days were kept under lock and key. And there you needed a Keynesian response with the governmental intervention. And such interventions become even more critical when private banks and financial institutions become even more apprehensive in providing loans for minimizing their own risk exposures, especially during the times of the economic downturns. Therefore, such loans from governmental sources, as has been announced by the AFM, can help the MSMEs to cover some of the running costs, at least, of what we call the factory inputs, like the wages and the salaries, maybe the operations and the maintenance costs, and somehow keep them afloat. So the FM, of course, envisages that around 45 lakh MSMEs in totality will be able to gain from these schemes. Further, the package also entails a partial credit guarantee scheme of around 20,000 crore, which is going to be funneled through the credit guarantee fund trust of the MSMEs, micro and small enterprises, to enable the promoters or the small units to increase their equity. And this can enable banks to lend to promoters, which can be infused as equity to their businesses. And there has also been a redefinition of the MSME through the inflation adjustment of investment and also adding turnover to the criteria. Now, this can help in certain ways. This can help many others with higher investment than the previous threshold took advantage of the scheme. But this also leads to something what we in economics call the moral hazard problem. And this can happen through underreporting. Both the turnover and the investment criteria can definitely lead to underreporting of turnover and the investment size to get classified as MSME and take advantage of the schemes. However, if we look at these schemes or what essentially the finance minister has come up with, these are all large-scale supply-side interventions. I was extremely elated to hear about the governmental scheme from the additional secretary related to the upping up of the demand. But even that, those are related to essentially the efforts of the government through government expenditure in infrastructure. Essentially, the lack of effective demand right now is more market oriented and market based. Uh, this lack of effective demand is something on which the government has not really worked on as far as the package goes. What the government has at most done is taking a decision of not having global tenders, for which my previous speaker spoke of having not having global tenders of government procurement of up to 200 crores. This is akin to providing protection and insulation to the MSMEs from global competition. And does not really alleviate the long pending problems of the sector, neither it augurs well in the long run. As an example, in fact, since we talked about the national steel policy of 2017, that clearly identifies that lack of effective demand and high input costs, these are two very critical problems. So similarly, these are not only problems of the steel sector. Even if you look at the edible oil processing units, they are also facing the same problem in terms of competition on the one hand, high input costs on the other hand, and eventually lack of effective demand, effective domestic demand. On the whole, in the short and the medium run, what the MSMEs are going to encounter at this point in time in the post-pandemic scenario is drying up of demand. And the Indian growth story of the last 3 decades, if I look at this has not been an investment-driven growth story. It has been a consumption-driven growth story. It has neither been a fiscal intervention-driven growth story. So the most crucial component of demand that has been hit by the lockdown is the purchasing power of the consumers with salary cuts and unemployment. Now, it is in this context I would like to bring about the example of China, though in fact China is of course not the favorite topic of the day, but there is something interesting that they did around 10 years back. China thought about a consumption-led growth vision, and that has been documented in their 13th and the 14th five-year plans. And the entire vision of consumption-led growth stands on the pillar of enhancing domestic private investment through increases in domestic purchasing power. China realized that their earlier philosophy, which was export-driven growth, is going to fail after a host of global economic crises mostly hit the United States of America, especially, in fact, if you recall, The Lehman Brothers failed. In fact, in 2007, in 2008, we had the subprime crisis. Then, in fact, in European Union, we found a major economic downturn, as also, in fact, some of the nations within the European Monetary Union finding it quite difficult to meet the convergence criteria to stay within the Eurozone. So this essentially negatively affected the export demand during the first decade of the millennium. So China realized that demand forces, which are apparently emerging from a more unreliable external sector, are contingent upon the vagaries of international trade and finance, and they need to be replaced. How? So what are the forces with which you are going to replace this? These forces are going to be the more reliable growth force from within the domestic economy, and that is essentially consumption demand, domestic consumption. And in one sense, this is what self-reliance is all about: creating a robust demand force from within the system. It's self-reliance is not about input substitution, but creating a more robust domestic economy. And this is something that PM Modi emphasized in his speech on May 12, 2020. So PM Modi emphasized, in fact, the need to address land, labor, liquidity, and laws. So, and this should not essentially be construed as addressing the supply side conditions only. This should include addressing both the demand as well as the supply side conditions. Unfortunately, the packages that have been announced precisely addresses the supply side conditions as suggested by land, labor, liquidity, and laws. But what has happened is it has not addressed the most critical demand, most critical variable of demand, that is the consumption demand, which is the organic growth driver of the economy ever since economic liberalization happened around 3 decades back in 1991. So it is not that the government essentially promoted consumption or the government wanted consumption to be the growth driver of the economy. It organically happened. Now, so we already had an advantage, something that China or many other nations intended to do in terms of promoting consumption through some policy-driven measures. We had that as a natural advantage. We are losing out on that, and we didn't work on that. Even when we are talking about the steel sector, ultimately it has to be the consumption demand which has to be the prime driver of this sector. You can think about infrastructure, you can think about a host of other things. You can think about, because this steel as can get into inputs as a factor input, in fact, in production of many things, including infrastructure, as well as some final products. But ultimately, there has to be a consumer demand to back this up. Right. So the concern for the MSMEs, whether it's for the steel or many other sectors, is where essentially is the final market. So the neo-pandemic global economic order is going to be a problematic. In fact, it is in a state of flux at this point in time. But how it is going to emerge, it seems apparently that the trade routes are going to be viewed with a lot of suspicion. Investment in the foreign destinations to exploit the global value chains in usual destinations are going to be cast with doubts. It is, however, a fact that India's contribution, or rather India's share in the global value chain is negligible. Now, large parts of the Indian MSMEs have so far been unable to compete in the international markets due to the inherent weaknesses which arise from technology, productivity, and costs. Now, with foreign markets now becoming even more inaccessible because the borders are going to close down, and in fact, they also have their own problems of domestic demand, the MSMEs need a more robust domestic demand base to sustain. Unfortunately, that is not happening now. On the other hand, out here, I'd also like to finish this off, rather emphasize that when India withdrew from the mega regional trade agreement, that is the RCEP, Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership, there were quite a few eyebrows that were raised. There was an argument that RCEP would have enabled India's MSMEs, in fact, in various sectors, including this particular sector, to integrate better with the value chain of Southeast Asia. Yet, I still feel that this has been a rational move at that point in time as far as India is concerned. It would not have been wise for India joining the RCEP given the present state of affairs. That does not mean that India should altogether give up on RCEP, but should think of joining the mega trade bloc at an appropriate time. Now, India has already signed a host of free trade agreements and what we call the Comprehensive Economic cooperation agreements or the CECAs, which also include the investment agreements. Many of these have been with the Southeast Asian nations, and ever since they, if you look at the data, ever since they signed these FTAs, the trade deficit, the trade balance, rather the trade deficit only increased manifold. Now, we don't have essentially agreements with Australia, New Zealand, and China, but there are already very high trade deficits with them. So, on the other hand, cheap imports, often with widened choices, create cheaper products that increase the demand for imported commodities within the Indian economy. This has affected domestic industry. But axiomatically speaking, if free trade really leads to cheaper imports of intermediary goods or services, they can help in making domestic industry more competitive and reduce the prices of final goods in the export market. From that perspective, regional economic integration can help barrier-free access of the cheaper exports to the external markets, and could have been conducive even for Make in India, or even from the perspective of Atmanirbhar Bharat. However, this might not be the case with RCEP, and there are many concerns that remain, especially with the market access with services. On the other hand, even today, the transaction cost of doing business in India is substantially high. The supply chains are not yet rationalized properly. The GST, though in fact it was thought of to be a major step to rationalize supply chains and remove the fragmented nature of the markets, somehow the compliance, the multiple rates of GST actually increase the compliance costs. The labor reform, so in fact the labor market is fragmented.
Right.
That on a similar note, one should take note of the fact that Atmanirbhar Bharat should not be viewed as import substitution or sheer protection of the industries. Rather, it should be viewed as a mode of creating robust domestic infrastructure and an institutional system. So we need to open the system up at some point in time. It is a pity that even after 3 decades of liberalization, we are unable to open up. But it's a fact that inefficient, low productivity, fragmented labor markets, inefficient production process, and high transaction costs are impinging all across the Indian economy, including the steel sector. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for your deliberation, sir.